Dr. Haywan opened her eyes and looked out through the cracked window of her small emergency pod. The moon beneath her was strange and beautiful. Green forests made of tall, crystal-like plants stretched across the land below. The sky above was a soft purple color, and two large moons hung in the distance like watching eyes. She had been traveling through space for so long that she almost forgot what it felt like to see something new and alive. 3 weeks ago, everything had gone wrong. The research ship had come down hard on this moon. The impact had thrown everyone around like toys. When Haywan woke up in the wreckage, she was alone. All the other scientists were gone. She did not know if they were dead or if they had wandered away looking for help. She had stayed in the ruins for days, hoping someone would come back. No one did. Now her emergency pod had finally landed safely near what looked like a forest. Haywan checked her suit one more time. The oxygen was working. The temperature control was fine. Her scanner was beeping softly, showing no immediate danger nearby. She took a deep breath and pushed open the pod door. Cold air rushed in, but her suit protected her. The gravity here was lighter than Earth, and she felt almost like she could float away if she jumped too hard. The crystal forest was even more beautiful up close. The trees were not made of wood, but of a hard, smooth material that looked like glass mixed with metal. When the light from the sun hit them, they glowed from inside. The ground beneath her feet was soft and mossy, nothing like the hard rock she expected. Her scanner told her the soil was rich with life. Microbes and small creatures lived in every handful of dirt. Haywan walked deeper into the forest. She was looking for any sign of her crew members. She was also looking for water and maybe food. Her suit had supplies for 2 more weeks, but she knew she would need to find natural resources soon. The deeper she walked, the more she saw signs of large animals. There were huge footprints in the soft ground, each one bigger than her entire body. Some of them were fresh. The creature had passed this way only hours ago. Her heart beat faster. Her scanner could not tell her much about what made these prints. The creature was very large, maybe 3 or 4 meters tall based on the stride length. It had multiple toes and seemed very heavy. A predator or a herbivore? She did not know. She gripped her emergency torch, which could also produce a bright light. That was all she had for protection. The sun was getting lower in the sky. Haywan realized she had been walking for hours. She needed to find shelter soon. The night on this moon would be cold and dark. She found a large cave in the side of a rocky hill. It looked dry and empty. She checked it carefully with her scanner. No large animals were hiding inside. She walked in and sat down on the smooth stone floor, letting her tired body rest at last. The cave was quiet, except for the soft sound of her own breathing inside her helmet. Haywan looked up at the ceiling and felt something inside her chest break a little. She was alone on an alien world. Her team was lost. She might never see Earth again. She might die here. She had been so strong for so long, moving from one moment to the next without thinking about how bad things really were. Now, sitting in the dark cave, she let herself feel scared. She decided to rest for just 1 minute. Just 1 minute to close her eyes and pretend this was all a bad dream. Just 1 minute before she had to get up and find water and food and a better shelter and continue surviving. She leaned back against the cave wall and let her eyes close. That 1 minute changed everything. Haywan was still sitting with her eyes closed when she heard the sound. It was a soft noise at first, like something moving through the forest outside the cave. Then she heard more sounds. There were multiple things moving out there. She opened her eyes slowly and looked toward the cave entrance. In the purple light of the alien sunset, she saw shapes moving toward her. They were large shapes. They were coming fast. Before she could stand up or reach for her torch, they burst into the cave. Haywan's breath caught in her throat. She was face to face with not one large creature, but with 7 young animals. They were not fully grown, but each one was still taller than she was when they stood on their back legs. They had long bodies covered in soft fur that seemed to shimmer with colors like oil on water. They had 4 strong legs with sharp claws. Their heads were shaped like nothing on Earth, with large, forward-facing eyes and ears that moved and turned toward any sound. The creatures froze when they saw her. HFY froze too. She remembered everything she had learned about dangerous animals. Never run, never scream. Show no fear if possible. Move slowly. These things looked like they could kill her in seconds. But then something unexpected happened. The smallest of the 7 creatures took one step forward and made a sound that was almost like a purr. It tilted its head, looking at HFY with curiosity instead of hunger. The other young animals did the same. They were not attacking. They were curious. The smallest creature walked right up to HFY and sniffed her suit. Its nose was warm and wet, and she could feel its breath against her chest. It made another soft sound, something between a purr and a chirp. Then, as if it had made a decision, it jumped right onto her lap. HFY did not move. She barely breathed. The creature was heavy but not crushing. It curled up on her legs like a cat might do. The other 6 animals, encouraged by this, began to move closer. They crowded around her, climbing onto her, using her body as if she were a piece of furniture or a comfortable rock to rest on. One of them lay across her shoulders, another pressed against her side. They made soft sounds that seemed almost happy. She sat there in the growing darkness, covered in 7 large alien creatures, barely able to believe what was happening. These animals treated her like she belonged to them. They treated her like she was home. The night passed in a strange and wonderful way. HFY remained sitting against the cave wall, surrounded by the 7 young creatures. They did not hurt her. They did not bite or claw at her suit. Instead, they used her as a bed. One of them rested its head on her chest and fell asleep, its breathing deep and steady. Another curled up against her leg. The smallest one, the one that had jumped onto her first, stayed on her lap and made soft purring sounds that vibrated through her entire body. HFY was terrified at first. Her heart beat fast, and sweat formed on her skin inside the suit. But as the hours passed and nothing bad happened, she began to relax. These creatures were not attacking her. They seemed to like being near her. The weight of them around her was actually comforting in a strange way. She was not alone anymore. As time went on, HFY began to notice details about the creatures. Their fur was not just one color. It had stripes and spots that shimmered and changed when the light hit them in different ways. Their eyes were very large and very intelligent. When they looked at her, she felt like they understood something about her. Their ears could move in all directions, catching sounds that she could not hear. Their claws were sharp, but they kept them pulled back when they touched her, being careful not to damage her suit. The creatures made different sounds to talk to each other. Some sounds were soft chirps. Others were low growls that seemed to come from deep in their bodies. Sometimes one of them would make a specific sound, and all the others would respond by moving or changing position. It seemed like they understood each other very well. HFY thought they must be a family group. The young ones were probably siblings. When the morning came, the light returned to the cave. HFY was exhausted, but still alive. The creatures began to wake up. The smallest one opened its eyes and looked right at her face. It made a happy chirping sound and licked her helmet, leaving a wet mark on the transparent material. The others woke up too, stretching and yawning with movements that reminded her of cats and lions on Earth. They did not leave the cave immediately. Instead, they seemed to want to continue playing with her. The smallest one grabbed her arm gently with its claws and tugged, as if inviting her to play a game. Another jumped onto her back and clung there while she remained sitting. The largest of the group pushed its head under her hand, asking to be petted like a dog might do. HFY, still afraid but becoming braver, reached out and touched the largest creature's head. Its fur was soft and warm. The creature closed its eyes and made the loudest purring sound yet. This seemed to make all the other creatures happy. They gathered around her more closely, each one wanting her attention. Hours passed. The creatures played around her and on her like she was the most interesting thing they had ever found. They tugged at her suit gently. They rubbed their heads against her body. They made soft sounds that sometimes seemed like laughter. One of them found her hair and played with it for a long time, wrapping it around its claws with great care and then letting it go. HFY began to understand something important. These creatures were not wild animals in the way she thought. They were intelligent. They had families and ways of talking to each other. They showed kindness and gentleness when they played. They understood that she was not like them, and they were careful with her anyway. The smallest creature seemed to have decided that HFY was part of its family now. As the sun moved higher in the sky, HFY realized she had been in the cave for more than 12 hours without eating or drinking. Her suit had supplies, but she knew she should get some water soon. She very carefully and slowly began to move. The creatures watched her. She stood up, and the smallest one jumped down from her lap with a sad chirp. She walked to the cave entrance, and the creatures followed her. Outside, the crystal forest was beautiful in the daylight. The sun was bright and warm on her suit. The creatures walked with her, staying close like they did not want her to leave them. HFY heard water running somewhere nearby. She followed the sound and found a small stream of clear water. The creatures drank beside her, their large heads bent down to the water. As HFY drank and refilled her water supplies, she made a decision. She would stay here for now. She would not immediately try to find her way back to the crash site or signal for rescue. Something felt important about staying with these creatures. They had saved her from being alone. They had shown her that this strange world could have kindness and warmth in it. She did not know yet what would happen next. She did not know if she would ever see Earth again or find her team members. But as the smallest creature rubbed against her leg and the others watched her with their intelligent eyes, HFY felt something like hope. These creatures had chosen to accept her. Maybe this strange moon was not the end of her story. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. HFY and the 7 young creatures spent the entire day together near the stream. The animals played and hunted small creatures in the water, while HFY sat on a smooth rock and watched them. She used her scanner to record information about them. She took pictures and wrote down notes about their behavior. These creatures were remarkably intelligent and organized. When one of them found food, it would call the others to share. They took turns drinking from the cleanest part of the stream. They seemed to have rules about how they treated each other. As the afternoon began to turn toward evening, HFY noticed something change in the young creatures' behavior. They became more alert. Their ears stood up straight. They looked toward the direction deeper in the forest. The smallest one, which she had started to think of as Kija, made a soft sound that was different from the playful sounds they had made all day. This sound seemed nervous or excited. The other creatures gathered close together. They moved slightly away from HFY, but did not go far. They seemed to be waiting for something. HFY checked her scanner, but it was not showing her much useful information about what was coming. All she knew was that something large was moving through the forest, something very large. Then she saw it. The creature that emerged from between the crystal trees was the mother of the 7 young ones. She was enormous. Where the cubs were maybe 2 meters tall, the mother was easily 4 meters tall when she stood on her back legs. Her body was long and muscular, covered in fur that had more dramatic colors than her children. Her stripes were bold and dark, and her spots glowed with deep purple and blue. Her eyes were larger than the cub's eyes, and they held an intelligence that made HFY take a quick breath. The mother stopped when she saw HFY. She went completely still, only her ears moving as she studied the strange creature sitting near her children. Heywan's fear returned suddenly and completely. Her hand moved to her emergency torch, but she stopped herself from turning it on. She remembered everything she had learned. Never show sudden movements to predators. Never show fear if you can help it. Show respect. The mother made a low sound, very deep and very loud. It came from deep inside her chest and seemed to shake the ground. The 7 young ones immediately ran to her and began to rub against her legs and body. They made happy sounds and jumped around in a way that showed they loved her and had missed her. The mother bent her large head down and sniffed each of them, making softer versions of her deep rumbling sound. Then the mother looked directly at Heywan again. Heywan held very still. She did not move. She barely breathed. The mother was looking at her with an expression that was hard to read. Was she angry that Heywan had been playing with her children? Would she attack? Heywan thought about running, but she knew she could never outrun a creature so large and powerful. The mother walked slowly toward her. Each step shook the ground a little. Her claws clicked on the stone with each movement. As she got closer, Heywan could see more details about her. There were scars on her body from old fights or hunts. Her claws were much larger and more worn than her children's claws. Her teeth, visible when she opened her mouth slightly, were long and sharp. This was a predator that had lived a long life and knew how to survive in this world. The mother came right up to Heywan and lowered her massive head. For a moment, Heywan thought this was the end. The creature was going to bite her, but instead, the mother simply sniffed her. The breath from her nose was hot and carried the scent of fresh meat and wild plants. The mother's large eye, which was now very close to Heywan's face, studied her carefully. Heywan could see her own reflection in that eye, small and helpless. Then something unexpected happened. The mother made a sound that was almost like a laugh. It was a deep, rolling sound that came from her belly. The young creatures began to make similar sounds, as if they understood some kind of joke. The mother pulled her head back slightly and tilted it, studying Heywan from a different angle. Without warning, the mother lay down on the ground. She was still much larger than Heywan, even lying down. The 7 young ones immediately climbed all over her, jumping and playing. Kija, the smallest one, came over to Heywan and made a soft, chirping sound. It was an invitation. It was saying that Heywan should come closer. Very slowly and very carefully, Heywan stood up. The mother watched her, but did not move. Heywan walked toward the large creature and sat down near her head. The mother's breath was warm on her suit. The mother made a quiet, rumbling sound, like the sound a cat makes when you pet it. Then the mother closed her large eyes and seemed to relax. The young creatures continued to play around their mother and Heywan. Kija settled onto Heywan's lap again. The largest of the cubs lay its head on Heywan's legs. The others arranged themselves in comfortable positions. The mother, with her eyes still closed but her ears moving to catch all the sounds around them, kept watch. As the sun began to set and the purple sky turned darker, Heywan realized something important. The mother was not just allowing her to be near her children. The mother was accepting her as part of the family. The mother was protecting her. In this moment, surrounded by these intelligent creatures, Heywan felt something she had not felt since the crash. She felt safe. She felt like she belonged somewhere. She felt like she had come home. Days passed. Then, weeks. Heywan lost count of time. She stopped trying to measure the days by Earth's calendar and started to live by the rhythms of this alien moon. She woke when the creatures woke. She slept when they slept. She ate when they ate. She learned the ways of the forest and the habits of her new family. The mother, who Heywan named Kaya, was a teacher. Every day she would lead her cubs on hunting expeditions through the crystal forest. At first, the cubs were afraid to let Heywan come with them. They would make nervous chirping sounds and stay very close to their mother. But Kaya did something that surprised HFY. The mother deliberately brought her along, walking at the front of the group while the cubs and HFY followed behind. HFY began to understand what was happening. Kaya was teaching her cubs that HFY was safe, that HFY was part of the family, that the strange two-legged creature in the metal suit was not a threat, but a member of their group. The mother would look back frequently to make sure HFY was keeping up. When the path became difficult, Kaya would slow down and wait for her to catch up. One afternoon, HFY realized something while she was sitting with the family near the river. She was recording sounds and patterns on her scanner, trying to understand the language that Kaya and her cubs used to communicate with each other. The creatures made sounds for different things. A high chirp meant danger. A low rumble meant contentment. A series of quick calls meant excitement. But there was something deeper than simple animal sounds. There was grammar. There was structure. There was meaning beyond just emotional expression. HFY started to keep detailed records. She wrote down every sound she heard and every situation where it was used. She noticed that sometimes the creatures would make the same sound, but with slight changes in tone or length, and these changes meant different things. The smallest change in pitch could change the entire meaning of what was being said. These creatures had a real language. That evening, when all 8 of them were resting together in their favorite cave, HFY made her first attempt at communication, using the creatures' own sounds. She waited until the forest was quiet and everyone was calm. Then she made a soft, low rumbling sound, the one that usually meant contentment and trust. The reaction was immediate. All the creatures looked directly at her. Kaya's ears stood straight up. The cubs made excited chirping sounds. Kija jumped onto HFY's lap and made the rumbling sound back to her. The other cubs gathered around, repeating the sound and touching HFY gently. Kaya made a new sound, one that HFY had never heard before. It was a combination of a chirp and a rumble, and it seemed to be a question. Kaya looked at HFY with an expression of curiosity mixed with something else. Was it hope? Was the mother actually trying to have a conversation with her? HFY did her best to repeat the sound. It was not perfect. Her human throat and mouth could not make all the sounds exactly right, but she tried her hardest, and the attempt itself seemed to matter to the creatures. Kaya made a soft purring sound and lay her large head down near HFY. It was a gesture of approval. Night after night, HFY practiced the creature's language. She learned sounds for water and food and danger and family. She learned sounds that meant, "Come here and go away and let's play." The cubs helped her practice, making the correct sounds slowly and clearly, repeating them until she began to get them right. Kaya watched these lessons with what seemed like approval, sometimes correcting her when HFY made a mistake, showing her the right way to move her tongue and lips. One day, something happened that changed everything. HFY was out exploring the forest when she found a part of the crash site. There was metal debris from the research ship. There were equipment boxes and broken instruments. She looked around carefully, hoping to find some sign of her team members. There was nothing. No bodies, no equipment, no signs of life. HFY felt sad, but she was not surprised. 3 weeks had passed since the crash, and she had found no sign of the others. They were gone. Wherever they were, she would probably never see them again. But something on the ground caught her attention. It was a piece of technology, a communication device. She checked it carefully. The battery was dead, but the internal systems might still work if she could power it up. Her suit had enough power to charge it, but just barely. She brought it back to the cave. That evening, as HFY was working on the device, Kaya came and sat beside her. The mother seemed to understand that something important was happening. Kaya watched HFY work with the kind of attention that an intelligent being gives to something meaningful. After several hours, HFY managed to power up the device. It flickered to life, and a message appeared on the screen. It was an old distress signal that had been broadcasting since the crash. The device was ancient technology compared to what modern ships carried, but it was still working. HFY held the device and looked at Kaya. The mother looked back at her. In that moment, HFY understood that she was facing a choice. She could transmit from this device. She could send a signal that would bring rescue. She could go home. Or she could stay here with her new family and continue to learn about this world and these remarkable creatures. The cubs gathered around her, making soft sounds. Kija climbed into her lap and made a gentle chirp, as if asking what was wrong. HFY petted the small creature and realized that the answer to her choice was already clear in her heart. HFY sat in the darkness of the cave with the communication device in her hands. The light from the screen cast shadows on her face. She could hear Kaya breathing softly beside her and the gentle sounds of the cubs sleeping nearby. She thought about Earth. She thought about the research labs where she had worked. She thought about her partner, Minjai, who was waiting for her to come home. She thought about the news that would come when they found out she was dead. But then she looked at Kija, sleeping peacefully in a bundle of blankets she had made from soft plant fibers. She looked at Kaya, whose large eyes reflected the light from the device. She thought about everything these creatures had done for her. They had saved her from loneliness and despair. They had given her a family. They had shown her that intelligence and kindness could exist in forms that looked completely different from human beings. HFY made her decision. She would contact Earth, but not to ask for rescue. She would send a message explaining everything. She would tell them about Kaya and the cubs. She would explain that these creatures were intelligent and civilized. She would ask that any rescue mission come with scientific teams instead of military forces. She would tell them that humanity was facing its greatest opportunity to meet another intelligent species with wisdom and respect. She spent the entire night composing her message. She used her scanner to create detailed records. She added pictures and video of Kaya and the cubs. She included samples of their language and her translation attempts. She explained how she had survived and why she believed these creatures deserved protection and study instead of fear and weapons. By the time the sun rose on the moon, HFY had finished her message. She activated the old communication device and began to transmit. The signal was weak, but HFY calculated that it should still reach the distant space stations that monitored this region of space. It would take weeks for a rescue mission to arrive, even if they sent one immediately. But she was patient now. She had learned how to wait. The cubs woke up and came to investigate the device. HFY powered it down so they would not be scared of it. Kaja made a questioning sound, and HFY did her best to explain using the creature's language. She made sounds for far away and family and help. Kaya seemed to understand the general idea. The mother made a sound that might have meant agreement. The days that followed were full of purpose. HFY continued to learn the creature's language. She continued to document everything about their behavior and their world. She discovered that Kaya and her cubs were not the only intelligent species on this moon. There were others, and they seemed to have some kind of peaceful arrangement. They did not fight each other the way predators on Earth might do. Instead, they seemed to respect each other's territories and ways of life. One afternoon, Kaya led HFY to a place she had never been before. It was a valley surrounded by tall crystal trees. In the valley, there were many creatures like Kaya, but of different ages and sizes. There were young ones, barely grown, fully grown adults, and very old creatures with gray in their fur. Some had cubs of their own. They were gathered together as if for a meeting. When Kaya arrived with her cubs and HFY, all the creatures stopped what they were doing and turned to look. HFY was very nervous. She did not know what would happen. But Kaya walked forward calmly, and HFY followed. The mother made a series of sounds that seemed important and official. She gestured with her head and body toward HFY. The other creatures stepped forward and studied HFY carefully. They sniffed the air around her. They looked at her suit and her scanner. Some of them made sounds that were questioning or curious, but none of them were aggressive. After what seemed like a very long time, one of the largest males made a deep, respectful sound. Then the others made the same sound. It seemed like a greeting or an acceptance. HFY understood that she had just been introduced to the larger community of creatures. Kaya had presented her to them and vouched for her. The mother had confirmed that HFY was part of her family and worthy of respect. This was a formal introduction, and HFY realized that it was something Kaya thought was very important. Over the next several days, HFY had many interactions with these other creatures. They were curious about her. Some of them made sounds to her, and she did her best to respond. Some of them brought their own cubs to meet her, as if showing her that they trusted her with their children. Others seemed to accept her as a kind of ambassador from an unknown distant place. HFY also discovered that these creatures used tools. They had sharpened rocks for hunting and cutting. They had made containers from plant materials to carry and store food. They had created areas for sleeping and areas for gathering and socializing. They were not primitive. They were a civilization. One morning, about 3 weeks after sending her message, HFY's suit suddenly picked up an incoming signal, a message from space. The rescue team was on the way. They would arrive in about 1 week. HFY sat down and felt mixed emotions rush through her. She was going to see humans again. She was going to explain everything to her superiors, but she was also leaving behind the family that had saved her. She was leaving behind the creatures that had accepted her and taught her that the universe was more complex and beautiful than she had ever imagined. She looked at Kija, who was playing nearby, and made a soft, chirping sound. The cub came running over and climbed onto her lap, making content purring sounds. HFY held the small creature and wondered what would happen next. She had done something no human had ever done before. She had lived among an intelligent alien species. She had learned their language. She had become part of their family, and now she had to decide what came next. The sun set over the crystal forest, and HFY held her alien family close, knowing that her life would never be the same again.